Advocates say San Francisco is still sweeping homeless camps against court order. Uh-oh. What? Police, city officials still doing the sweeping deal? You guys need to move. Even though there's a court order in place? We need to get to the bottom of this. What is going on in San Francisco now? Let's check it out. On our ReasonableTV.com subscription service, not only do we have content that you won't find anywhere else, we've also got the latest episode that we release. We release 2 a day, Monday through Friday, 1 on Saturday and 1 on Sunday. Got that content in the same spot. You've also got the latest news of kind of what's going on. So you've got a bunch of different content here, all organized, all right there, $10 a month. Check it out. So many stories out of San Francisco. Man, look at this photo here. Good Lord. Stuff just piled. You got a barbecue. Is that a barbecue on wheels there? Can't even tell what that is. So, no, it's not a barbecue. Just so much stuff on the sidewalks. Everything's all tagged up. Then you can see on the left-hand side on the wall, there's just a bunch of covered up graffiti. I was in downtown Seattle on I-5, and the amount of graffiti cover up, they're going ham on, number one, the graffiti. They're going even more ham on the graffiti cover up. So you just got all these blocks of fresh paint all over Seattle. It looks better than the graffiti. Gotta say that. But either which way, you're like, can you just leave well enough alone? You don't have to paint the city with your ass and a can of spray paint, do you? I mean, do you? Advocates for the homeless in San Francisco say the city has continued to remove unhoused people from encampments without providing shelter for them in defiance of a federal magistrate's order. Uh-oh. Are we going to have some sanctions? Are we going to have people get a timeout? U.S. Magistrate Judge Donna Ryu issued an injunction December 23rd. Apparently, they do not care about Judge Donna's injunction. And they're just like, you know what? We've got sweeps to do. It's what we're doing. Don't care about your little injunction. The injunction barred San Francisco police and other officers from sweeping homeless encampments, citing their occupants for sleeping in public and seizing their belongings, while she considers a lawsuit against the city. Federal appeals courts have ruled that the Constitution's ban on cruel and unusual punishment prohibits local governments from making it a crime to sleep on a street or a sidewalk when no homeless shelters are available. Okay, that's the basis for most cities' encampment removal, right? As long as you have space at the inn, you know, that whole Jesus in the inn thing, there's no more room in the inn, so they had to go sleep in the, what was it, stable? I think that's what the rumor was. And then the 3 wise men came bringing gifts and then a star and Star of David. Yeah, all that stuff. Anyway, if there's enough room in that homeless shelter, then they can sweep them. But how do you, at what point in time is that, before, during, or after the sweep? Because San Francisco is a massive city, right? You got people coming in and out of, you know, city shelters all day long. It's a fluid situation. Yeah. How do you determine that? Some judge just sit down and goes, I don't like the sweeps, therefore injunction. But in a filing with Ryu on Friday, Jennifer Friedenbach, executive director of the Coalition on Homelessness, said she saw city officers remove about 6 homeless people from an encampment at 17th Street between Hampshire and Mariposa streets during a rainstorm. Oh no, on December 27th. City employees shook tents and woke people shouting, "You need to move," and later admitted they did not know whether shelter spaces were available, Friedenbach said. Let me know in the comments. Should they have to have spaces available for these folks that have probably gotten notice after notice after notice that they need to move, that they are literally living on the sidewalk of a busy street? They're living outside of somebody's business, maybe outside of somebody's church, maybe outside of somebody's school. Do you think they really should have space available? Is that the humane thing to do? Or do we sweep them anyway? That's what San Francisco's police are thinking. Filing by Ian James, the coalition's organizing director, described another sweep December 27th in Taylor and Eddy streets. Of the 13 unhoused residents, James said, 4 were provided shelter and 2 more were told they could find beds at a shelter. Then they were told to wait for transportation, which never showed up. All right, that's weak. If it's down, I mean, in San Francisco's had a downpour, right? How about those electric vehicle charging stations during a massive downpour? How does that work when you've got 2-3 feet of water everywhere? You got an electric car. I've always heard electricity and cars don't mix, but there's got to be some provisions for charging electric cars during a massive flood. I had this question come up on a number of YouTube comments by people. Like, how's that working out? Like, I don't know. Good question. Last Wednesday, at the start of a torrential bomb cyclone downpour, officers arrived around 7 a.m. at an encampment near the ferry building at the Embarcadero and told one couple to start packing up, but admitted they wouldn't know until 8:30 a.m. whether shelter was available, said Kristen Evans, a volunteer with the coalition. The same morning, according to another volunteer, Shanna Cooper Arona, 8 police vehicles arrived to clear out an encampment on Erie Street, and a fire department commander said the residents' property would be discarded unless they packed up quickly. One of the residents asked a question in Spanish. Arona told the magistrate a city worker turned away and replied, "I don't speak Mexican." Okay. Well, I mean, it is not Mexican. It's Spanish. Get your languages right. Espanol. Got to go down that road. Ryu said that in her December 23rd order that San Francisco has not disputed that it's removing homeless people without offering shelter and has seized and destroyed some of their property. But Mayor London Breed has said most of the people the city is evicting from encampments have other housing or are refusing offers of shelter. That in the vast majority of what you see happens. People will take a shelter bed overnight to try and figure out their next move. Okay. And then where do they put all their stuff? Well, they put it with friends, family. Sometimes they've got storage units. You know, they make do, whatever. When you're living on the streets and that is your choice of lifestyle, which so many of these people it is, this isn't one of those things where they have zero options. They are literally living there due to their access to drugs. Bottom line. Simple as that, right? I mean, we know this to be true. This is just reality. Are there exceptions for that? Of course. There's always exceptions for everything. Are the exceptions predominant? No. They are exceptions, just like the word. A handful of folks are not on drugs in the encampments, but they're the weirdos, right? They are the outliers, the statistical outliers. At one of the December 27 encounters, everyone present at the encampment was offered shelter and services, Emery said in a letter filed with the court. They were asked to move temporarily to allow cleaning of the area, but there was no threat of criminal prosecution, and those who did not accept shelter remained in the immediate vicinity, he wrote. He also said the city would give 72 hours of notice before clearing encampments in the future. So to me, what the city is doing is that they're just kind of business as usual. All right, got to keep going. Got a lot of encampments. You know, Portland has, at one point, they're still going hard on clearing out the encampments. Well, as hard as you can when you have 700 encampments in your city, which is a population of considerably less than 700,000. I mean, it's just gotten out of control down in Portland, right? And the resulting crime and murders and theft and all of that point to, you know, you've got this whole ecosystem of not only gangs, but drugs in the encampments that's just gone wildly off the rails. That's what's happened in Portland. And it's really unfortunate to see because it's such a beautiful city. Talking with one of my good friends from high school, we were born on the same day, November 7th, 1968. And I got to know him in 7th grade. I think he came to my school. And we were talking about how cool and how much more comfortable downtown Seattle used to be back in the day, in the 70s when we were kids. It always had its grittiness. Seattle's always had that kind of gritty, heroin influenced side. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like some rawness to it, like a lot of big cities do. But Seattle especially, I think it goes back to, you know, logging and men being men and nobody hugging trees and chainsaws and big fishing boats and, manly stuff, just kind of like gritty and gnarly. But it felt a lot better back then, even with that influence, than the influence it is today because of the drugs. And that's, to me, what Seattle's experiencing, and it's not good. Portland is experiencing, I don't know how many hundreds of times over. Same thing with LA in, certain areas, in Skid Row, San Francisco and the Tenderloin and all these other areas. Where businesses, basically have private security because they can gross enough to cover the security. Whereas in a lot of other towns, you can't gross enough as a small business to cover that security bill. And so you don't do it. And so your place just gets broken into repeatedly. But you know what I'm saying? It's just, so these cities are just continued doing these sweeps. People don't take shelter. It's like, all right, well, we're all playing along with the system. And then you've got some judge here. What effect is the judge? You got a federal judge doing an injunction. Doesn't seem like anybody's paying attention to her. Like, people are like, okay, yeah, we heard you. We see you. I mean, there might be space. We don't really know. So how do you enforce that? You don't. So this injunction, unless it comes from the top down, basically means nothing, does it? Because the whole mechanics of monitoring this system apparently don't really matter. Because the city still doing its thing. It's doing the sweepy of what it needs to. Yeah. And if the folks don't want to get the help that they need, and if they're not able to, unfortunately, at this point in time, that's kind of on them. That's the way I see it. So here we are. That's the way as the world turns. Do you remember that one? Here's another thing, super random thing. This is at the tail end. There's very few of you left watching, and that's okay. I was watching Newsroom. It's on HBO, epic series. Now you can binge watch it. And they said when Walter Cronkite had an opinion about Vietnam, the war basically ended. What was that all about? I haven't researched that one. Maybe some of you know. Let me know in the comments. I'll read them. Thanks for being here. We'll catch up soon. Talk then. Bye for now.